So tonight I'd like to share with you some stories of three women who were the most influential in my spiritual growth. The unfortunate truth is that two of them never saw it come to fruition, at least in this life. There is no doubt in my mind that they're both with Christ today and are living in paradise. The first was my maternal grandmother, Helen, or as we affectionately referred to her as Big Grandma. She didn't mind, of course. Big Grandma was always the one we stayed with before and after school. She would help my sister and I get ready for the bus, prep for a test, or finish homework. We always had the best snacks at Big Grandma's. I grew to love sausage patties and ketchup there. I don't know why, but I love them. Big Grandma was a deeply spiritual person, and she enjoyed going to church when she could. She never took a driver's test, and therefore was always reliant on someone taking her around. Around 8th grade, she moved right next door to the church where we attended, which was nice because she could come with us more. Big Grandma came from more of a conservative era. She didn't like us watching or hearing about any hanky-panky. So, of course, when I turned into the typical teenage boy, that's about all I could think about. This particular instance, I recall, was during the summer between my 8th grade and freshman year of high school. I had written a rather steamy note to my current girlfriend. Now, I say steamy, but it's really as much as an 8th grader can fathom. So it talked about kissing. Well, here's the catch. I had written this note during a vacation Bible school that I was supposed to be helping out with. The kids were doing their own craft thing, so I didn't figure they'd mind taking some time to compose my sincerest thoughts. Yeah, right. So that afternoon at Grandma's house, somehow the note fell out of my pocket and I didn't notice. Grandma found it and read it, and suffice it to say, I got a stern talking to that day. As innocent or not as it may have been, she could see what such content could lead to. She quoted scripture to me and chastised me for having been at the VBS to work, not write smut. And it pained me deeply to have hurt her so bad. I had a hard time writing this. I'm going to have even a harder time reading it, I know. In October of 1992, the Lord called her home. Up until that point, I had been struggling at school, fighting with my folks, and barely getting by. But something snapped in me that day. I know now that she had probably prayed like mad for my sister and I, but it didn't click at the time. All I knew is that I was going to get my act together and try better. My grades improved to the point where I was but a mere quarter or half credit, depending on how you calculate it, short of graduating with honors. The next fine lady is my Grandma Betty, who we call Little Grandma. Little Grandma probably weighed 90 pounds soaking wet, but she was one of the strongest women I've ever met. Shortly after my dad was born, her husband decided he didn't want to hang around and took off. Little Grandma, not too far removed from high school, had 2 little boys to care for. While working at a shoe factory, she got an electrical engineering degree and eventually ended up working at GE for most of her life. From the stories I've heard, she never once faltered in her faith that God would take care of her. Because she lived a couple hours away, I didn't have nearly as much interaction with her as I did Big Grandma, who lived just around the corner. I loved her, of course, but we didn't really develop that deep connection. I'll get back to Little Grandma here in a minute. She ties into this next piece. I have a revelation for you tonight. Now, I don't know if you knew this, but Satan attended Tiffin University. Yep, class of 1999. You can probably see him right next to me in some class photos, I'm sure. All right, so not literally, but no doubt about it, Satan had a hold of me in college. I started drinking early. As soon as I could find friends to pick it up for me, that's what I did. I had a girlfriend at the time who I treated horribly. My grades kept up okay, but otherwise I was not exactly living a great life. My junior year on Thanksgiving break, I showed up to my parents' house for dinner, still hungover from the previous night's adventures. And I'm sure both grandmas would be thoroughly ashamed of my behavior had they known. In college, Little Grandma would consistently send me cards while I was at school, not just birthday or Christmas, but little notes with a $20 bill, usually. I didn't remember the notes, just money. Ooh, gas money, Taco Bell, or, yeah, you guessed it, probably booze. Some of you know to a college kid, money is king. Well, three years of this rolls into senior year. The drinking had picked up, promiscuous activities picked up. I cheated on my longtime girlfriend during a period where she needed a strong support person. Eventually, I ended up getting someone pregnant and assisted in an abortion process. Not too many people know that about me. And I'm sure those that do try their hardest to forget about it. I know I do. I would like to as well, but as a life experience that I have to carry with me. Looking back, I can't believe what a gigantic tool I was. Someone asked me one night if I went to church, to which I replied, I used to, but not anymore. Why not? They persisted. The only answer I could come up with was, I was just angry at God. I couldn't pinpoint exactly why. Maybe because my big grandma was taken from me. Maybe because I just felt so miserable about who I was. I don't know. But for whatever reason, I'm mad at him, and that's just how it's going to be between us. Don't forget about little grandma. We'll get back to her. But for now, we come to the third woman in my life, my wife, Laura. We met briefly in my freshman year of college. Her next door neighbor, Erica, for nearly all of her life, and I were in many of the same classes at Tiffin. Erica and I became fast friends, and she said she'd introduce me to this girl, Laura. I said, sure. So we did a double date thing and hung out. Laura was pretty cool. We got along all right. We exchanged email addresses. She emailed me a couple times to say, hey, how you doing? I'd respond with a dirty joke. So remember, college, giant tool. So nothing happened right away. But 5 years later, Eric and I are planning a trip to Cedar Point to visit her fiance, who is a security guard. I said I didn't want to be a third wheel with them, so how about inviting her friend Laura? No idea why her name came to me, but due to some circumstances, we weren't able to go on the scheduled day. But I contacted Laura and said, hey, if you'd still like to go out that night, come down to London where I live, I'll take you out. Now, as Laura shares this story, she'll say, I hadn't been on a date for 3 years, so I was desperate.
It's true.
We went out. We went out that night, had dinner, played some games at Dave & Buster's, and watched a movie. And when she left, I was convinced that she was my future wife. She had other ideas. She thought, he's nice, but it's not going to go anywhere. Our third date, we had coffee at a shop in Findlay, and we just sat and shared. We asked each other questions and immediately began to know each other more and more. On the way back to her house, I shared with her some of my sordid past. Figuring she would balk and end it right there, but she asked why I was telling her all of this. And I told her about how I was angry at God and I didn't want to be anymore. I knew that she and her family were churchgoers and very spiritual, and I said I wanted to know more about that. That I thought maybe that's why we were brought back together, so that he could fix me. Well, not long after our courtship started, Laura sponsored me on the Emmaus walk. I turned the minimum age for that walk while I was on it, by the way, on that Saturday. But I don't need to get into how amazing Emmaus is. You guys all know that. You've done it already. So now I've done the walk. I'm going to church again, and I cannot figure out for the life of me why Lutherans find it so appalling to clap to music. But that bothered me. So I'm reading the Bible for the first time probably since preschool on my own. It's around July of 2000, and little grandma was out for a walk one day and has an aneurysm and falls down. She's hospitalized but not expected to make it. And for whatever reason, I wouldn't go see her. I think the idea of this strong but tiny woman lying there unable to move just shook me too much. I didn't want the last image I had of her to be that. I was a coward, and I'm angry at myself every time I think about it for not going to her side and telling her that I got it. I got it figured out. I was working on having what she had. I wanted to let her know that I knew God too, to see her light up with joy and love. But that was not to be, and so I hid. Not long after she passed, Laura and I were packing up some stuff for a move. And being the pack rat that I am, I never throw away cards. Birthday cards, Christmas cards, Halloween, got them all, shoeboxes full. And as I'm going through these, I find some of the cards that little grandma had sent to me in college. The notes were always about how proud of me she was and that she was always praying for me. It included some scriptures sometimes, but remember what I said before, money. Yeah, nice note, praying for me, got it, $20. If it was possible to feel even more like a schmuck, I did. But knowing little grandma like I did, and because of the faith and relationship with God she had, I'm sure she'd just smile and say, that's okay, I know God's got a plan for you. In the time that's passed, I've tried to live right by all three of these women. They all played a major role in helping me to become who I am today. And because of them, I'm confident that my children will grow up and turn into great women as well. You've learned some about me tonight, probably more than some of you cared to, and for that I thank you for listening. But looking back, I can't believe that after all I put people through, all I did to rail against God, He still welcomed me back. And someday I know I'll be reunited with Big and Little Grandma in the